As another year goes down for the 3 count, let's take time out and take stock of the twists, the turns and the turbulence around the top flight title scenes. We'll start with the AEW World Championship, arguably the most turbulent of all. Hangman Page began the year as world champ, a culmination of one of AEW's greatest stories ever told. The thrill was in the chase, though, and this is despite well-received defenses against Bryan Danielson, Lance Archer and Adam Cole. CM Punk took the gold at Double or Nothing in May and immediately got injured, ushering in the era of the Interim Championship, first held by Jon Moxley. Moxley was an overachieving understudy, beating Tanahashi to grab the honor, and the likes of Rush, Brody King and Chris Jericho to keep it. Moxley took his reign lineal when he beat the returning CM Punk on Dynamite in the run-up to All Out. However, Punk grabbed it back in Chicago, after which he proceeded to eat muffins and burn bridges. The title was vacated after the All Out fallout, and Jon Moxley won a tournament to begin his third reign as AEW champion. This ended with William Regal's brass knucks in the hands of Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Friedman proceeded to make the belt Burberry and promise a long, annoying reign with the title, which began with a defense over Ricky Starks on Dynamite Winter is Coming. The belt has been in flux for most of this year due to injuries, interims and infighting, so the oceans need to be calmed. MJF will steady the ship and hold the title all the way through 2023, in my opinion, and then there's a bidding war that I could see maybe him being the centre of. Let's talk about the AEW All-Atlantic Championship. Speaking of waters, a belt initially designed to be a roaming gold for AEW, one that Pac put in his backpack and hit the road with. He shot down Shota in Sheffield, he cleared up with LJ Cleary in Dublin and conquered Connor Mills in Manchester. His old foe Orange Cassidy gave him a run for it at Arthur Ashe and went on to topple him in Toronto. This time, Orange literally put the belt in a backpack and further annoyed wrestling purists. Go on, Pockets. Freshly Squeezed has made All Atlantic's title defenses a Rampage regularity, racking up defenses against the likes of Shibata, Jake Hager, QT Marshall, and former NXT UK star Trent Seven. Something has to be done next year to differentiate the All Atlantic title from the other belts. I don't want it to become another mid-card thing. You know, maybe get back to taking it on tour. Make it whoever holds it the ambassador across all the, Atlantic, I guess. Let's top up the Trios Championship for the year. After timeless teasing, Tony finally trotted out Trios titles in 2022. A tournament of triumvirates culminated in the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega taking the gold at All Out. We know what happened after that event, don't we? Their first title defense was against CM Punk, Ace Steel, and CM Punk's dog, and it resulted in the titles being stripped from them, and Pac, Penta, and Phoenix welcoming the Trios Championships within their Death Triangle. And a death grip has been on the belts ever since, with the Dark Order, Best Friends, and AR Fox and Top Flight all falling short. They're currently locked in a best of 7, our Death Triangle, with the returning Bucks and Omega to determine the 3 standard bearers of Triple Trouble in 2023. Now, there's a strong division of threesomes to dance with for next year, but I can see the Trios titles bouncing mainly between Death Triangle and the Elite. Maybe when Kenny and Co have their turn proper, they could maybe see FTR and a friend finally go hunting for Bucks. There's a thought. Let's go from trios to duos and the World Tag Team titles of AEW. The Lucha Brothers were Campeones Dominante entering 2022, but they fell to Jurassic Express on the 5th of January. A long overdue title reign for the boy and his dinosaur, which survived the Dark Order, Private Party, the Gun Club, and Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. It ended after 161 days, the extinction level event being the Young Bucks, and they kicked off their second reign on top. Insult was added to injury moments later when we saw Christian turn his back on our prehistoric pals. It was heartbreaking. Matt and Nick's second kick as champs lasted just 4 weeks when the mighty team of Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee ripped the belts from the Bucks. However, internal issues with Swerve in Our Glory brought an end to their story in September, with the Acclaimed winning the gold in a result that was very well received by the AEW faithful. They've already galvanized their legacy with victories over the Butcher and the Blade, the resurging Swerve in Our Glory, and FTR of all people. Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, arguably AEW's greatest homegrown stars outside of MJF, and they feel right as tag team champions right now. These belts, however, I feel will end up around FTR's waist at some point in 2023. They've had pretty much every other doubles belts except Wimbledon. The AEW World Tag Titles are currently very obviously missing from their persons. That will probably be corrected next year. Let's talk about the AEW Women's Championship, which began with Dr. Britt Baker ruling the roost. She turned back a challenge from Thunder Rosa at Revolution, but Rosa would not be denied and won the title in a heated steel cage match 10 days later. Now, not unlike Hangman Page, the chase was the best part of the Rosa story for many. Nyla Rose, Serena Deeb, Toni Storm, and Jamie Hayter were among those that she beat despite apathy and a changing of general fan sentiment towards the champ. Ahead of another thunderstorm showdown, Rosa announced an injury that was forcing her to the sidelines. This led to Toni time beginning in earnest as interim AEW Women's Champion. Toni would lose the standing strap to Jamie Hayter at Full Gear, after which it was announced that the interim was out of him. Rosa's injury would see her away for far longer than expected, so Jamie Hayter was recognised as lineal champion as 2022 came to a close. The unexpected love of Jamie Hayter has challenged the landscape of the women's division in AEW, as well as changed it. Sure, when Thunder Rosa comes back, she'll get a crack at the belt, but Dr. Britt Baker's green-eyed impending monster is going to create a rivalry for the ages in 2023. And maybe all of this, it's just what the doctor ordered for the women's division in AEW. Let's talk about another division of women in the AEW world, which is the TBS title division. We crowned our first ever TBS champ just a few days into 2022 when Jade Cargill beat Ruby Soho for solo gold. Since then, nobody else has officially held the title. Nyla Rose stole it, never properly held it. The baddie section booted out the likes of Marina Shafir, Willow Nightingale, Athena, Madison Rayne, and the aforementioned Nyla Rose. Cargill can take a bow because of this. She is AEW's most dominant champion, having held the belt for nigh on a full calendar year. And I honestly don't see a rush in taking the belt from Jade Cargill. She's improving with every match, getting spicier with every promo. And if Jade drops the TBS title next year, I guarantee it won't be long till she's wearing the other women's title around her waist. Let's talk about the AEW TNT Championship. The year opened with, believe it or not, Cody Rhodes as AEW TNT champ. That feels like a million years ago. The bullshine started early. Sammy Guevara beat Dustin Rhodes to become interim TNT champion as Cody couldn't make the Battle of the Belts due to COVID protocols. The belts were unified in a ladder match at the end of January, with Sammy becoming undisputed and pretty unpopular. He and Scorpio Sky hot potato the title during the spring as the summer of Wardlow began. The TNT title soundtrack would be a powerbomb symphony, but played very quietly in the background. An underwhelming run with the gold saw Wardlow beat the likes of Jay Lethal, Tony Nese, and Brian Cage. A hoss fight at Full Gear between Hobbs and Wardlow's former tag partner Samoa Joe saw Joe grab the gold instead. Hopefully some renewed focus for AEW's secondary title in 2023. It's lacked true direction this year, and it should go back to its purpose of being a star builder. Maybe something that Kenny Omega could work wonders with, along with younger guys in AEW. Just a thought. Now, there's two promotions that I wanted to recognize alongside AEW and WWE this year. Well, technically one promotion, one brand. This is due to how much their lineage has intertwined in the vines of our two main protagonists. Let's start with Tony Khan's newest electric Ring of Honor. The ROH World Television title had a very hard gear shift in April, with Rhett Titus dropping it to Minoru Suzuki. However, it'll barely be a fortnight in the clutches of the murder grandpa before it'll be Kokina clutched away by Samoa Joe. The TV title, ironically, got very few runouts on TV in 2022, with 2 defenses on Rampage and Joe's last being on Dynamite. Joe has been present, though. He had the belt on his his boulder shoulder whilst he fell out with tag partner Wardlow and then greedily snatched his title from him as well. With the ROH TV deal becoming a streaming deal, Joe as TV champion, while seemingly redundant, is a good call. A veteran who can bounce some rookies around and, in losing the title, make a star on his way out of the division. ROH World Tag Team Titles now. Tony immediately put his fingerprints over Ring of Honor, with FTR taking the ROH Tag Titles from the Briscoes at Supercard of Honor in April. They've held the titles with prestige, turning back the Young Bucks in AEW, United Empire and Roppongi Vice at Forbidden Door, and kept Mark and Jay Briscoe at bay in a near hour-long 2 out of 3 falls classic Death Before Dishonor. Seek that out. Kiss, 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 chef's kiss, chef's kiss. The ROH doubles world was reset in December as the Briscoes took the gold back in a war of a dog collar match back at Final Battle. Next year, reign number 13 continues for Dem Boys with renewed energy in Ring of Honor. They are easily the standard bearers for the tag division. I do see the fate of the tag titles resulting as a result of an AEW jump, though. After all, Keith Lee didn't forget about Shane Taylor. Let's go from doubles to trios. The ROH World Six-Man title. Weird irony with these belts this year. The Righteous held them till the summer, whilst Vincent, 1/3 of the champions, was in Impact Wrestling in a faction that mourned the loss of Ring of Honor. He made one final appearance for ROH at Death Before Dishonor, where, along with Dutch and Bateman, dropped the titles to Dalton Castle and the boys. There's been a couple of tries at the trios title since then, one being AEW faction The Trustbusters on an episode of Dark Elevation, and otherwise, not a lot of action until the Enterprise with Brian Cage stepped in and hoyed them away at Final Battle. I could feasibly see the six-man titles going away completely. There's not enough belts to battle for on a limited amount of Ring of Honor vision. Maybe Brian Cage takes them all and throws them over a wall. Who knows? The ROH Pure title, a title with rules around the sport of professional wrestling, has seen a lot of action on AEW TV since the Ring of Honor buyout. Josh Woods started as the guy before dropping it to the Blackpool Combat Club rookie Wheelie Huter at Supercard of Honor. He kept it through Death Before Dishonor before dropping that to Jericho Appreciation Society young boy Daniel Garcia in the main event of AEW Dynamite back in September. Now, he couldn't out-wrestle Huter a second time, and the belt returned to the remnants of the BCC at Final Battle, back with Wheeler once more. Not sure who procures the Pure plates, but the Pure Wrestling rules keep this gold feeling glorious going into 2023. I'd like the matches next year to feel more in keeping with the division. That style of a Pure Wrestling match hasn't felt as distinctive, despite some of the rules staying in place, as it did once before. I'm hoping we can find our way back to that. Not just about the rules, it's about the feeling too. You get it. The ROH Women's Championship started this year in the clutches of Deonna Purrazzo, but her relationship with Impact Wrestling meant that Tony Khan wanted to bring a champ in-house. However, on the night of Supercard of Honor, Purrazzo was already booked, so Tony had to settle for crowning Mercedes Martinez as, you guessed it, the interim champion. She solidified herself as the true champ when she beat Purrazzo on Dynamite soon after. Mercedes had some dominant wins over the likes of Trisha Dora, Viva Van and Serena Deeb. However, injury forced a slowdown in challenges and challengers. Reluctant to make more placeholder gold, Martinez was just kept away from AEW until she was good to go. And once she was, she lost the titles to the new, very aggressive Athena. Next year, anything will do. ROH need to make their women's division hit different to everything else. With the league now being led by the dark side of Ember Moon, it's a pretty good place to start. Let's talk about the major men's title, the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship, which during the downtime was held by Jonathan Gresham, and he flew the flag everywhere he went up and down the wrestling landscape. He took it from everywhere to indie shows in the US and the UK, to Impact Wrestling, all over the place. And he headlined Supercard of Honor with a 30-minute belter against Bandido to undispute his ROH reign. Tony Khan thanked Gresham for keeping the company front of mind and all the hard work that he did by having Gresham drop the belt to Claudio Castagnoli in the opening match of Death Before Dishonor. Claudio's first ever world title run was cut short by Chris Jericho, who won his first ROH title at Dynamite Grand Slam. Now, many see the Ring of Jericho reign coming about as a way of sweetening a deal for an ROH TV show. A big name like Jericho is the brand's top star, which made it a surprise when the title went back to Claudio Castagnoli at Final Battle. And then we realised that the Ring of Honor TV deal was a streaming deal on Honor Club, and we kind of get it. Expect Castagnoli to be the one and only for a big part of 2023. There's a lot of love for Claudio, also a lot of love for Bandido. So we can maybe see a Switzerland versus Mexico showdown as the headline of a show in 2023. It's Group A of the 1950 FIFA World Cup all over again. We said farewell to NXT UK this year, so one final time, let's see who stood tall as champions in the UK. The NXT UK Tag Team titles at the start of the year were held by Tyler Bate and his old best friend Trent Seven in his corner. Mustache Mountain were the doubles guys on January the 1st. When tensions flared between Trent and Tyler, they ended up miscommunicating their belts all the way to Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter. Bittersweet for Ashton Smith, who mere weeks after winning his first ever piece of WWE gold, suffered an injury and never got to defend it. The titles were held up and then pulled down by visiting NXT Off of America stars Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs. The bar brawling boys took those titles to their final resting place, the NXT Arena in Florida, where Pretty Deadly won all 4 belts and binned the British too. The NXT UK Women's Championship, the final year of the Blighty women's belt, was dominated by the final boss, Meiko Satomura. Everybody that stepped up to the Joshi legend got knocked down, but it was at NXT Worlds Collide where Mandy Rose's knee collided with Blair Davenport's face to see Meiko drop her title to Toxic Attraction without even being pinned. The men's NXT UK Championship started in the hands of Ilya Dragunov in 2022. This is after he beat the unstoppable Volta, now Gunter, at NXT TakeOver. He was flying as champ, torpedo Moscowing the likes of Jordan Devlin, A-Kid, Rampage Brown and Roderick Strong. However, an injury forced him to surrender the title in the dying weeks of the brand. And on the final night of NXT UK, Tyler Bate defeated his longtime friend turned enemy Trent Seven to become the first 2-time NXT UK champion. He took the title to its last destination, NXT Worlds Collide, where despite his best efforts, he fell short against the immovable Steiner that is Bron Breakker, who then unified the UK title with its US big brother. Let's stay with the kids in America. Whoa! Tommaso Ciampa began the year as NXT champion on the former black and gold brand, with Bron Breakker literally smashing the old NXT logo en route to smashing the old NXT guard and taking his first title. Dolph Ziggler was a bump in the road for Bron to overcome, which he did on the Monday after NXT Stand and Deliver. His grip has been Loctite ever since, turning back the likes of Gunter, Joe Gacy, JD McDonough before he made the gold legitimately intercontinental by beating NXT UK champ Tyler Bate to unite the kingdoms. Ilya Dragunov, Von Wagner, Apollo Crews, all fallen by the wayside to the brawn of Bron. Now, this is surely Breakker's final stretch as part of the third brand. Grayson Waller seems a likely candidate to put the dog-faced son of a dog-faced gremlin down, where he can play sneaky, cut every corner, ne'er-do-well on top. Might be a short shoey for Grayson. I think Carmelo Hayes has an NXT main event run on the horizon. He'd make an exceptional standard bearer after Grayson Waller. After all, Melo don't miss. The NXT Tag Team titles started the year with Imperium, and their 158 days of dominance ended at the hands of MSK at Stand and Deliver. However, the joy was short-lived when Nash Carter was released from WWE following disturbing photos coming to light. The hole in the tag ranks was filled by NXT UK's Elton Prince and Kit Wilson, aka Pretty Deadly, who shocked everybody when they came out on top of a gauntlet match to grab the gold. The Creed brothers found the titles in the diamond mine when they beat Pretty Deadly at NXT In Your House, going on to survive Idris Enofe and Malik Blade, as well as the D'Angelo family and their own family, with a defense against Roderick Strong and Damon Kemp. Once again, Pretty Deadly, pretty shocking. They entered the NXT/NXT UK Tag Team Unification match with 0 belts and left with 4, combining the tag titles forever. The team that spent the year shocking folk were the Shocked at NXT Deadline. They were challenged by and defeated by the New Day to kick off their first run with third brand belts. New Day are keen to work with Pretty Deadly some more, and Shawn Michaels is keen to keep New Day in NXT. So don't be surprised if Kofi and Woods have a strong tour with the titles until eventually putting Elton and Kit over on their way back up. From there, I believe the gold will be found once more in the diamond mine. I think the Creeds are almost definitely ones to have another run with the belts. Should a main roster call-up be a little bit further away, they can have some fun in the doubles division. The women's tag titles. It's been a toxic year in many ways for the women's doubles in NXT. Gigi Dolin and JC Jane of Toxic Attraction kicked off the year as the champs before being toppled by Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez in early April. 3 days later, order was restored as JC and Gigi held the belts once more. By the end of the month, Dakota Kai would be unceremoniously out of favour and released from her WWE contract. A lengthy run from Mandy Rose's seductive Stormtroopers was cut short by Super Friends for Life Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez. They'd barely broken the new leather in before Cora Jade broke a skateboard over Perez's back. Well, it kind of broke in mid-air. Friendship ended with Roxanne Perez. It saw Cora pull a Medusa and dump her belt in the bin. New champs were crowned again in the deserving dynamic duo of Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. They've been on one of the few consistent women's tag teams on the roster for over the past few years. It was only fair they got a run with the belts. They turned back 2 challenges from Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark, which led to another friendship being dissolved as Stark attacked Lyons when they lost their second effort. They also survived a triangle tussle with Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley, and once more Toxic Attraction. With the change in the Toxic Attraction camp, which we're going to get to, there is a chance to re-establish the trio as a twin set, and now Gigi and JC once again have a poisonous run with the belts before heading to Titan Tower's top tier. A warning to whoever goes for the women's tag titles on NXT, there is a high probability, as this year has proven, that it will tear your friendship apart. The NXT North American Championship. We entered 2022 with a missless Mellows momentum at maximum. That was until NXT Stand and Deliver, where Cameron Grimes climbed to the moon and to the North American Championship in a 5-way ladder match. It would be back with Carmelo by June though, but it would only be a quick visit through In Your House rather than a long stay. Solo Sikoa took the title as he was called up to join his bloodline brethren on SmackDown. Rather confusing bit of booking. It saw Solo win the title and almost immediately vacate it due to his commitments on a Friday night. It was held up all the way up in a ladder match at Halloween Havoc and grabbed by former MSK member Wes Lee. Feel good moment seeing Wes get the belt. Since Lee's tag partner had disappeared and his tag team glory had been clipped through no fault of his own, it was nice to see him shining as a single star, and he has been, mixing it up with Carmelo Hayes and the D'Angelo family. Wesley almost definitely has a date with Dijak in the new year. And this will be a real solidifying moment for the secondary title. Will it remain with Wesley and be an excuse to get a photo in Ladder Match Quarterly magazine? Or will the self-proclaimed Justice of NXT snatch the gold and be the white and gold's de facto Brock Lesnar, except, you know, there more often? The NXT Women's Championship. Mandy Rose dominated the women's rankings in NXT. For better or for worse, she's been a champion with working boots. Cora Jade, Raquel Gonzalez, Kaylee Ray, then later known as Alba Fire, Io Shirai, Dakota Kai, Wendy Chu, Zoe Stark, Blair Davenport, Meiko Satomura, all left with L's when across the ring from Mandy Rose. Mandy was set to become the only women's champion of 2022 in NXT until this this past week. Photos from Mandy Rose's fan time account were apparently against what WWE had agreed. So last Tuesday, the other week, a combination of pop rocks and a Greco-Roman contract violation saw Mandy Rose lose the women's title to Iron Survivor winner Roxanne Perez and then leave the company. As for the title, a shock but well-received title change on an otherwise blemishless year. Roxanne Perez was the lady in waiting for a title win anyway. We just skipped to the good part early. Perez will pop rock up to 2023 as one of the youngest champions in WWE history, with nothing but obstacles to overcome. A re-up with former bestie Cora Jade seems obvious, as does a showdown with new angry heel Zoe Stark. Expect one of those two more than anybody else to end the Perez premiership. The Raw Tag Team titles were up to the main roster now, and Randy Orton and Riddle entered the year with voices in their heads and belts around their scooters. 10 days in, though, they dropped Red Gold to Chad Gable and Otis. Sadly, their first defense was the night they dropped the belts back to RK Bro in March on Raw. From there, Riddle and Orton put the Red Gold up against their Blue Brothers, held by Bloodline boys Jimmy and Jey Uso. It was on SmackDown in May, the night Usos established their true tandem authority by becoming the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. That brings us to the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Only one team on top here since day one-ish of 2002. The Usos have been the ones. Another landmark year for Jimmy and Jay, who have assembled tag team classics with almost everybody they've stepped between the ropes with. RK Bro, the Street Profits, the Brawling Brutes, the New Day, with whom I could watch wrestle every single day for the rest of my life. They generate more art than AI. Next year, the Usos' time certainly is up. I expect their Hall of Fame worthy run to come to an end at the hands of possibly Kevin Owens and a bloodline embittered Sami Zayn, possibly around WrestleMania. I don't see the titles being divvied up either. Post-Mania, I see a new era dawning where tag champs become a traveling band between the brands, keeping the Usos' tag tradition alive. Let's talk about one of the favorites in the world of championships, the Intercontinental title. It feels like 1,000 years since we saw King Nakamura as IC guy, but it was only January, believe it or not. Boogs played him in, but Sammy played him off when he became the Intercontinental guy for a third time around. He loses gold to Ricochet before heading off to face Johnny Knoxville in a WrestleMania Jackass showdown. Ricochet, meanwhile, would put the work in. Angel and Umberto, Jinder Mahal and Shanky all seen off before the shadow of Gunther launched into view. A hefty powerbomb later, and the Austrian monster was king. Since then, Gunther has brought his sacred match machinations to the IC division. He put the title on the map with a Wrestling Observer 5-star outing against Sheamus at Clash at the Castle, and he seems like an unstoppable force going forward. Next year, if anybody is taking the title from the head of Imperium, it's gotta be the head of the Brawling Brutes. Sheamus' desire for the only title in WWE he hasn't won, and the salivating we as fans get when we think about another Sheamus Gunther match, makes him the most likely to stop the Ring General. The WWE United States Championship, the company's other secondary strap, was strapped to Damian Priest when the year began. It was pulled away by Finn Balor though, much to Priest's chagrin. Don't worry, they'll make their peace, I'm sure. A career-making moment followed for Austin Theory, who beat Balor clean on Raw in Buffalo to bag his first bit of singles business. This led to outings with the returning Cody Rhodes and Mustafa Ali before Money in the Bank saw Bobby Lashley rack up his third US run. Later that night, Theory would swap a belt for a briefcase in a fashion most frustrating. Lashley's reign saw some fine offerings too. The Miz, AJ Styles, Ciampa, and an eventual loss to Seth freaking Rollins. Theory would cash in his Money in the Bank to try for the US title, being the first person in history to use that anytime, anywhere championship opportunity to go for the US belt. Kind of feels like using a £50 note to buy a pack of Chewits. Seth would put it up against Lashley and Theory at Survivor Series, and he'd complete the triangle with a loss to Austin Theory. Next year, I see Theory being US guy for a while on Raw. When it comes to move the belts along, it's probably going to be a first-timer like a Cameron Grimes or a Johnny Gargano, which allows Theory to move the divisions a little bit further up. That's my theory, anyway. The WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Some of these title reigns feel like they happened in a different time zone and a different timeline, let alone the start of this year. Queen Zelina and Carmella were champs when the clock struck midnight on January the 1st. They covered the crowns until WrestleMania, where Sasha Banks and Naomi would ride into the AT&T Stadium and leave with the titles. Now, one of the most talked about moments in 2022 took place with the Women's Tag Team titles involved. Unhappy with creative plans going forward, Sasha Banks and Naomi left the belts with John Laurinaitis and walked out of WWE. For Sasha, at least, to never return, so it seems. The Women's Tag Team Championships on the main roster were cast into oblivion until August, when the unorthodox team of Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah would win a tournament to bring the belt back from the brink. They would go to the rightful place just 2 weeks later, when the newly formed unit of Bayley, Io Sky and Dakota Kai would seize control. With the exception of a bump in the road in the form of a loss to Alexa Bliss and Asuka, Damage Control have been the only game in town in 2022. Next year, more doubles need developing. Doubtlessly. Kai and Sky are great, but more tag teams need to be introduced. Don't be shocked if, in the next 12 months, these belts get injected with a lethal dose of toxic attraction. -1 rose. The SmackDown Women's Championship. Now, the year began with Charlotte Flair as queen of the blue brand. She survived a WrestleMania run-in with Ronda Rousey, but Rousey rebounded and caused the queen to capitulate at an I Quit match at WrestleMania Backlash. Rousey's run was halted when Liv Morgan lived for the moment and cashed in Money in the Bank to begin her first tour as SmackDown Women's Champ. A reign that started with fan ovation and ended with fan confusion. Morgan overcame Ronda in a short SummerSlam rematch and a longer battle with Shayna Baszler at Clash at the Castle, but you could feel the fan sentiment changing. Eventually, she fell to Ronda Rousey, who had fresh evil intentions in an Extreme Rules match back in October. Rousey's reign has been more miss than hit from here, many pointing to the shaky shanky match that she had with Shotzi at Survivor Series as evidence that the baddest woman on the planet is... you get it. Next year, there's 2 possible dates in the diary for Ronda. One with Raquel Rodriguez and another possibly with Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. You know, if anybody can bring out the best in Ronda following a not well-to-do 2022, it has to be Becky. Rousey is on her best behavior when the man comes around. Speaking of, the Raw Women's title started round the waist of Becky Lynch. She was the red brand ruler before Bianca Belair took vengeance over that SummerSlam embarrassment from the previous year with a cracker of a match at WrestleMania this year. The EST has been the hardest working champ on the red side. Defenses against Becky Lynch, Asuka, Sonya Deville, and several gimmick-based grapples against Bayley and Damage Control. Next year, there are 2 names looking to leave fresh prints on Belair. Rhea Ripley has been turning heads in every sense this year and could be the one to snatch the gold from our girl. Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair have also unfinished business that could be tied up in a WrestleMania match. Belair wants to beat all the 4 horsewomen, and I guess Charlotte is the shiny that completes the proverbial Panini sticker book. Onto the men's main titles now. The WWE Championship first of all. Big E spent roughly 22 hours of 2022 as WWE Champion. He marched into WWE Day 1 as the man before Brock Lesnar was shoehorned into his match and took the title as he did so. The sat-nav on the road to WrestleMania was getting very confused as Lesnar dropped the title to Bobby Lashley at the Royal Rumble and then snatched it back again at Elimination Chamber. Bobby would end up losing the belt to Brock, and Brock would bring that lineage and prestige with him to a showdown with Universal Champion Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, the winner becoming undisputed WWE Universal Champion. A weird, underwhelming headliner saw Roman get 3 seconds on Brock Lesnar to add the WWE title to his trophy case on the island of relevancy. Now, let's talk about the Universal Championship. Roman entered 2022 as the Universal Champion, getting DQ'd against Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble and taking a referee's decision against Goldberg in Saudi Arabia. Not an auspicious start to the year, but once Roman got that second belt, he got his motor running. While whilst his appearances have been scarce and his title defense is scarcer, they've always made headlines. Be it the near riot when he defeated Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle in Cardiff, the social media meltdown caused by his victory over Logan Paul, or his run-in with Brock Lesnar's tractor at SummerSlam. Next year is 2023, the year that we wrest the wrestling riches from Roman Reigns. WrestleMania presents an opportunity to split the titles once more, which would lead to Roman Reigns defending each belt on a different night. We've talked plenty about the possible players to knock the head off the head of the table. Some say it's Cody Rhodes with the spirit of his father. Some say it's The Rock to put Anoa'i in his place. Some even say it's Sami Zayn, who's earned the right to triumph over the Tribal Chief. Whoever takes the titles, it's gonna be big shoes to fill, and I wish him every bit of luck in doing it. Here is to a year to come of golden greatness across the world of wrestling. Stay safe and love you, bye.